Chambers of the Occult may contain content that might not be suitable for all listeners. Listener discretion is advised. Welcome back.
Hello. Welcome back to Chambers of the Occult.
I'm Jay,
I'm Kai.
and have we got some stories for you?
We do. Now that I'm thinking about it, I don't know if we introduced ourselves last episode. or 2 episodes or whichever. I think 2 episodes ago when we had our cameras on for the first time.
I think we did.
We did? Okay.
I think so.
Either way, you guys should know us by now.
Yeah, you
It's
should
whatever.
recognize the voice.
Yeah, you should. People are recognizing our voices, I guess. I had
Yeah, they
somebody
did.
recognize my voice last week, and it was kind of weird because I thought he was stalking me, and I was really scared for my life. Not really, but it was kind of funny. So, yes, hello, hi. You guys should probably know us.
Yeah,
Which
we're
is really
the
cool if you
voices
do.
in your
Thanks
head.
for being here. Thanks for sticking around.
Yeah. No.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah.
We've got
That's all.
some fun stuff. It is a nice night right now. I'm
Honestly,
very cozy. I don't know about you, Jay.
It is.
yeah.
I came home, my window was open, and I'm like, it's getting chilly, so I closed it.
I love it. I love that it's finally getting chilly.
Yeah.
It's been so hot here for far too long.
It doesn't feel like fall, but it's finally
no, it
starting
really does
to.
not feel like fall, so I'm so glad it's getting cold.
Yeah. Yeah. I came back from my trip and I was like, it's still not fall weather. But yeah. Well,
cool. All right. Whenever you're
any
ready.
other updates we have for them?
As always, let us know what you guys want to see. I don't know. And we're, constantly trying to improve and trying out new things. So you're going to see new things from us soon.
Someone tagged us on a TikTok video, like a paranormal case. So just added it to our favorites. So feel free to take a look at it in case you want to cover that one in the future.
Got it.
But yeah, tag us places.
Yeah, and we're definitely working on, responding to TikToks and emails and things like that.
Yeah, sometimes
we'll get back to you.
It's a little hard to reply, especially when it's like, would you stay in a haunted hotel? And the comments is like, no.
I mean, fair enough, but we can't really do much with that.
Yeah, but I mean, straight to the point.
Yeah, don't blame you.
We had a question, you answered it. Thank you. We should have more open-ended questions. I think that might help.
Please, engage us. We want to talk to you guys.
We will engage back to y'all with you.
Yeah,
I think that's the word I was looking for. Cool. Let's
Ready
get
to
started.
Kick it off?
But yeah, quick question. I mean, it's related to my story.
Okay.
I'll start us off with true crime. By the way, I'm just gonna clarify right here and there now. Yesterday was Tuesday. Yes. Monday and Tuesday, I was doing research for the wrong story.
Oh, what?
I was doing research for a paranormal story. Even though we discussed that I was covering true crime.
True crime, okay.
For some reason, it just slipped my head. And
Fair.
I was going deeper into it, and I'm like, wait, I was like, do I have any other cases? And then I realized, oh, I'm doing true crime. Didn't panic though, because I already had this pretty much researched quite well.
And I mean, there's an abundance of true crime cases out there. So
and
it's
paranormal ones. You just have to find them.
This is true, but I'm not the greatest at finding paranormal cases. Anyway,
maybe you should stop looking for buildings and just start looking for UFOs or cryptids or I don't know.
See, I have tried, and I don't know. Either there's not enough, or there's just not enough to like really talk about in a case. So like
Okay.
for some of them, I like they're like a good bonus story or
Yeah.
something. But we don't have those anymore. So
Yeah.
um,
But fair.
maybe I'll look through. Maybe I'll throw
There
some
is a lot, and
stories
most of them tend
together.
to be like a short story of like, this is when it started, this is when it ended, the
Yeah.
end. Or like, yeah, fair. Well, have you ever been to Illinois?
No.
Okay, cool.
I want to go though. I want to go to
Cool. Yeah.
Chicago and all
Um,
those places.
my layover was in Chicago's airport, so I was there for
Nice.
like 30 minutes before my next flight, but I was like, now I need to come back and literally get out of the airport. Anyway, um, we're going to Illinois.
Okay.
We're also going back in time, so
Of
we're
course.
going like the usual.
I
The
mean,
year
no
is
way we could go like forward in time. So
true, or can
yeah.
we? I don't
Who
think so.
knows? Who knows?
We're not there yet.
No. Yeah.
The year is 1982, and it's September 29th, 1982, and
Okay.
it. We're gonna go through a couple places, but it all takes place in Illinois. September 29th, 1982, in Elk Grove Village.
Okay.
Now, here, it's going to sound like a little fairy tale. There was a 12-year-old girl who lived in Elk Grove Village. But one day, she woke up experiencing a sore throat and a runny nose. She wasn't feeling well, so she told her parents, and her parents, just told her to stay at home from school. So, like any good parent, they gave her some medicine and they sent her to get some rest. Hopefully, the medicine will help with her symptoms. Now, at 6:30 a.m., um, little Mary woke up to go use the restroom, and then her dad heard a thud.
Mm.
After that,
Okay.
he called out to his daughter Mary. He was like, Mary. There was no response. So he barged into the bathroom and he found
Yeah.
out that she was found unresponsive on the floor.
Oh shit.
Yeah, we're going straight to it.
Straight to it. Okay.
Her parents immediately sought emergency medical assistance. However, despite their quick response, Mary was taken to the hospital, and just 3 hours later, she was pronounced dead.
Fuck.
Yeah.
That's so sad.
Now, the same day that this happened, there was another Mary Rayner. She was a 27-year-old in the town of Winfield, and she had a body ache. She also had just recently given birth to her fourth kid, who was just a week old, and she just hit the floor comatose.
What?
Yeah.
S
Um, her
okay.
husband called the
Yeah, yeah,
paramedics.
yeah.
Um, her 8-year-old daughter had to watch from upstairs as the paramedics took her mom away. Unfortunately, she didn't make it as well.
The hell?
Now, this is Mary Kellerman, the 12-year-old, Mary Rayner, the 27-year-old. And now we're going to go east to talk about Mary McFarland,
Another one? Oh
another
my
Mary.
god.
Um, she is 31 years old, and her job at the Illinois Bell Phone Center, she just told her coworker that she had a split in headache. And after a few minutes at work, she went comatose and hit the floor as well.
What? What? I mean, like, they're named Mary. Who's targeting Marys?
Fair.
What is going on here?
Now, same day, September 29th, 1982, same day, a few miles north in Arlington Heights, here's a name change Adam. Adam Janus, 27-year-old, he felt that he was coming down with a cold as well. So he took the day off from his postal office. Do you have.
So, no, keep going. But I'm like,
Okay.
so it's not just Mary's?
No.
Okay. Anyway.
Yeah, so Adam took the day off from his postal office job. And later that day, he told the kids that he was going to go lay down. Adam staggered into the kitchen and he collapsed right in front of them.
Fuck.
The time was 11:54, and he slipped into a coma.
Imagine being those kids
Oh,
and just
yeah.
like watching
From upstairs or like just in front of you, just like your parent goes down.
just your dad just stumbling and then he drops and then he like
No,
doesn't wake up.
I don't know if you have seen, side note, but related to parents passing out. This lady getting her tattoo done, and then she's like, I need some water. And then she starts to pass out, and the kid's with her. And as soon as the mom like hits the floor, he's like, ah, she's dead.
No, I haven't
Okay.
seen
I'll
that.
have to find it and send it to you, but it's
Okay,
just
okay,
great.
yeah,
She just
yeah,
needed a
yeah.
break from the tattoo. Um, but yeah, I mean, it's crazy. So in the hospital, Adam's entire family, his parents, brother, and their wives, and his niece, Monica, were told that Adam had passed away. So this is the fourth person that just on this day just passed away.
That's
Um,
crazy.
so afterwards, Adam's family went back to his house and they just comforted each other. They made coffee, they ate some canned peaches. And in the house, Adam's older brother named Stanley and his wife Teresa um, were suffering from some chronic pain that started to act up. So Stanley was about to go on a smoke break. He was going to go smoke a cigarette when in front of his parents, brother, and wife, and even his daughter Monica, he grabbed his chest. He collapsed to the floor. His eyes rolled back to the back of his head, and then he started to foam from the mouth. Now, go ahead.
No, I'm just like, that is so insane. Like,
Yeah,
what is happening to these people? And if
that's what
foaming
we're
at the
gonna.
mouth, like what?
He
I don't
has
like
been like so far. Everyone else just passed out comatose. He's the first one that
yeah.
has foamed on the mouth,
Okay, yeah. Like so it's changed. It's escalated a bit or something.
or he's maybe just reacting differently to something else. Now, of course,
You can't just drop that. Oh my
I mean, I'm just
god.
saying something's going around.
So they're like being poisoned or something,
Well,
or I
the
don't
room
know.
went
Keep
chaotic.
going.
Everyone was standing in shock as he was in the floor, foaming at the mouth. Funnily enough, or just like it's just an interesting fact, the same paramedics that helped Adam were the ones that arrived to help Stanley.
Oh shit.
And once again, they were in
They
disbelief. This is like the
yeah.
second call they're getting from the same household, and now it's his
Yeah.
brother
Yeah.
that needs medical attention. So the paramedics started to load Stanley on the stretcher. Things went from bad to worse. His wife, Teresa, had had a headache, and then she collapsed on the floor.
It's spreading. What?
Or is it?
Uh,
Um,
uh, I don't know.
yeah, so she collapsed on the floor, and his wife Teresa, like I said, she just collapsed on the floor. Monica, their daughter, ran to her mom, just begging her not to die. She had
Valid
just lost her
reaction.
uncle. Her dad was on the
Yeah.
floor, and now her mom had also collapsed. The family was unsure of what to do, so they just got on their knees and they prayed.
Yeah.
Because also, like, what are the chances that like three of your relatives are going to suffer from something crazy like this?
No, seriously, like that is insane. Of like the the coincidence of that. But I mean, then that leads me to believe that, of course there's got to be something
Going around.
nefarious at
Yeah,
play.
this is a true crime after all.
Exactly.
Now, the police just evacuated the family. They put them in quarantine, suspecting that a gas leak was what's to blame.
Oh, I
Also, the
guess that's
police were
plausible.
unaware that
Yeah,
other people in other locations were suffering, so the police just thought it was this household.
fair.
Now, by 8 p.m. that evening, Stanley was pronounced dead. He was the fifth person, and Teresa was holding on to dear life. Now, no one knows how the three Janus cases were connected, the three family members. Um, but if they were able to find out the cause, maybe they would have a fighting chance for Teresa to survive. Unfortunately, Teresa just died a few hours after her husband Stanley, making her the sixth person to pass away. Now, once the house seemed safe, the investigators, Nick Pichot's police officer and a public nurse named Helen Jensen returned to the household to investigate. There were no obvious clues that really stood out, but Helen Jensen noticed that something caught her eye: a red and white bottle of extra strength Tylenol.
No.
It sat on the bathroom shelf um, with, some over the counter drugs. Nurse Helen Jensen brought the container to the kitchen. She poured out the pills, and the investigators counted them to compare them to the box. And they quickly realized that there were three doses missing, 3 doses for 3 people.
Yeah.
Now, Nurse Helen had a theory, um, and she reminded the investigator of little Mary Kellerman, the 12-year-old. At the time, the paramedics took inventory of everything that little Mary had taken. The one common item, care to guess what it was?
Tylenol.
Tylenol. So, investigator Nick had the paramedics ship him the Tylenol box from Kellersman's home. And once the investigator Nick had both packages, he called the chief executive medical examiner, who was Dr. Robert Stein. And Dr. Robert Stein told the investigators that there had only been one thing connecting them, and it was Tylenol.
Tylenol.
Now, the Tylenol packages had the same control number, MC2880. They tested the pills, and they came back positive for cyanide.
What the fuck? Okay.
Yeah. So this is the case of the Tylenol poisonings.
Oh, yes, yes, yeah. Okay, yes.
The name probably rings a bell, but I did not lead with
It
this.
does. No, I don't know anything about it, but of course I've heard about
Yeah.
the Tylenol poisoning. So,
Now, the way cyanide works is that once it's ingested, it works by blocking the cells from our body from utilizing oxygen. So even if the person, like Mary or everyone else, they were breathing, the cyanide just prevents the cells from absorbing it, and it just
wow.
causes the cells to suffocate from the inside
Yeah.
out.
Wow.
Yeah. Now the process is quickly. It impacts the brain and the heart, the two organs that depend highly on oxygen to function. And within minutes, this can lead to severe brain damage and the shutdown of the heart and other, systems in the body.
Hmm.
Now, without prompt and effective treatment, cyanide poisoning can rapidly result in fatal outcomes, as we've seen. Now, just a little quick history in Tylenol, not too long. Tylenol was introduced in 1955, and by 1980, it was number one. So it was found everywhere.
Yeah. I mean,
Now,
it was huge.
yeah,
It still is.
still is. Now, Tylenol didn't have a plastic seal at the time. It was just a cardboard cover on the top, and a
Oh,
couple cotton balls on the inside. So, because it was, the number one pain reliever, or
yeah.
whatever Tylenol does, officials needed to get the word out, since every pill was unfortunately a ticking time bomb.
Yeah.
That's when officers from the Chicago Department of Public Health and the Cook County Medical Examiner's Office, including Dr. Robert Stein, held a local press conference to warn that Tylenol was dangerous. Now, the cops knew that not everyone was watching the news at 10 in the morning, so they took to the streets. Police cars and ambulances cruised down, blasting like
Smart.
messages through the bullhorns that said,
Smart.
"Do not take Tylenol." In addition to this, local church groups and Boy Scouts went door to door to help spread the word.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so, because once again, it's medicine that anyone can take. They were like, we need to get the word out. The health department placed notices on local homes that read, "This message is to alert you about a contamination that has been found in Tylenol products. We strongly urge you to stop using these products immediately." It's like a massive recall, but at the same time, it's like, don't take it. You might die.
Literally, it's like, guys, take this seriously. please.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not like, "Don't look at the control number, just like all Tylenol
Mhm.
products." Just
I Yeah, you mentioned they held, like, a local press conference, like, for
yes.
the news, right? I'm surprised they didn't get, like, federal, like, stuff immediate like, n notified immediately to get, like, a national conference or, like,
Uh-huh.
some type of news broadcast or something. I don't know, maybe they did and you'll get into it, but
You're just foreshadowing.
No,
You sure you haven't
but,
heard
like,
the story?
immediately, you know?
Yeah, yeah. Well, at first it was like the same little towns within the same area, um, but I'll get more into it.
Yeah, yeah, of
So
course.
once again, the cops went door to door asking residents to hand over any bottles they had, and it wasn't just to like take them away from their hands, but also to, of course, like test them to see if they potentially purchased a bottle of Tylenol that had cyanide in it. Now, word started to get out, but of course, fear did as well.
Yeah.
Doctors' offices, hospitals were all filled with phone calls, from people that probably had taken Tylenol. People who had taken Tylenol, just before hearing the message called and asked if they were about to die.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Oh my
The fear
god.
that went through this people when they heard this message after they had just taken a Tylenol pill. Now, the CEO of the Cook County Medical Office Examiner's Office had a blunt answer to everyone that called, and he simply said, "The simple answer is if you took it and you're calling me, don't worry, because of how fast cyanide acted."
Yeah. Yeah. God, but, like, still the fear of, like,
Oh yeah,
taking a pill and then calling and, like yeah, that must have been crazy, like, knowing you could literally die at any second.
yeah, definitely. Now, Friday, October 1st, this is 2 days after the first incident started. Around 5 p.m. in Old Town Chicago, cops broke into an apartment. The apartment was of a 35-year-old flight attendant, Paula Prince. As they broke into the apartment, she was laying on the doorway to the bathroom with moisturizer still smeared on her face, and a bottle of Tylenol sat in her vanity. She was the seventh victim, and her sister had been the one to find her. Now, the at this point, the problem wasn't only part of the suburbs, but it also crawled into the city, and that's when police decided to tell the mayor. However, there was a problem. She wasn't home.
What? Where the hell was she? Uh,
Now, the mayor of Chicago at the time was Byrne. Jane Byrne. She
okay.
was also the first female mayor of Chicago,
That's
um,
cool.
and she had actually gone to a party that night. Now, the police, they're like, we have to reach her.
Mhm.
So the police superintendent called the mayor. They were still able to get a hold of her.
Good.
Um, and the superintendent told her about the flight attendant who had died in the old town and
Mhm.
all the deaths that were surrounding the suburbs.
Yeah,
Um, and the
good.
mayor immediately understood the gravity of the situation. Um, So once she arrived, she decided to hold a late night press conference, um, and it broadcasted nationwide. This is when we go nationwide.
Good. Good.
Um, yeah, she took it very serious from the start, and around 11 p.m., that's when the mayor made an announcement, and she made a direct appeal to Johnson and Johnson, telling them that they had to recall every Tylenol bottle on stores nationwide. Now,
I agree.
this was a huge deal at the time because in 1982, CNN um, was on its first 2 years of cable news. And a crisis like this was rare to be seen nationwide. So CNN uncovered it, and within the 2 years, like they just cover like a national crisis. Um, Now, this caused panic, of course. Once again, at first it was in the
Yeah,
suburbs, now it's in Chicago, now it's all of Illinois, now it's nationwide. Um, People were panicking. People started to wonder what else was tampered with. They're like, if they tampered Tylenol, what else is tampered with? Um,
valid,
yeah.
yeah.
Some people even stopped giving their kids milk since there was no safety caps on cartons as well.
Okay, at first I was like, but actually I guess that makes sense because like anything could be tampered with.
Yeah. This was
So
before everything was like tamper
like
proof.
seals and stuff like that. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what ended up happening was that Johnson and Johnson decided to step in. They established a hotline, and for 4 days after the press conference, they recalled about 31 million bottles. And that was an estimate loss of about $100 million at the time.
Holy
So they're
fuck.
like, we
A
have
lot
to
of
do
bottles,
this.
a lot of money.
Yeah.
I'm sure they were pissed about having to recall all of this, but like, yeah,
Yeah,
they
but
knew they had to.
people's lives are at stake. They did offer
Literally.
refunds and exchanges to customers. They said Tylenol would not be back on the shelves until they had the perfect tamper-proof packing.
Hmm.
Um, and in a surprise revelation, Johnson and Johnson disclosed that they had not been completely honest before,
What?
because they admitted that they did indeed store potassium cyanide at some of their facilities.
What?
Yes, which is crazy to think of.
Why are they storing cyanide? What do they need cyanide for?
Okay, so this is what's happening. So they stated that the substance was used in laboratory-based chemical testings, specifically to test povidone. I think that's what it is. It just binds tablets, and it's like a stabilizer. It's like the primary binder used to make Tylenol. So they didn't
Okay.
actually keep it where they manufactured Tylenol. They kept it in a different location, but they still, had their hands on it.
Yeah.
Officials just stated that the labs were at a remote location away from manufacturing. It was just for testing, not for manufacturing. Um, and Johnson and Johnson set up lab tests to recall all the pills, um, and the effort was worth it.
Good.
Now,
I'm glad they made the effort.
yeah. Now the company found 3 bottles, with the pills replaced with cyanide. 2 of them were found in people's homes, which means because of the recall, they saved who knows how many people's lives from that
Yeah.
house.
Yeah. Yeah.
And one was found still sitting in a Chicago store shelf, waiting to be sold to an unsuspecting victim. Now, yeah, go for it. What's running through your head?
No, I'm just thinking like it's so disheartening of knowing all this, but then I'm still on the fact of just like how are like why is there the possibility they could like mix up cyanide and put it into their pill bottle? Anyway,
No, no,
keep
you're good.
going.
You're good.
Keep going.
It was a lot. Like I was like, why are they doing it? It's like, oh, it's like for testing, but it's not at the site of manufacturing. Yeah, there's a lot. Um, So, like I said, Mayor Jane Bryan, and Johnson and Johnson's hard work paid off because they were able to save more life by recalling all the Tylenol bottles.
Mm.
Now, the FBI, the Illinois State Police, and the local departments and other law enforcement agencies were, they formed a task force to investigate the Tylenol poisonings. Um, and the name given was the code name for the task force was Timers, which just stands for Tylenol
What?
Murders.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay. That's simple.
yeah. Now, investigators thought that the person responsible for the killings, um, bought Tylenol Extra Strength, emptied the capsules, replaced it with cyanide, and then on Tuesday, September 28th, the murder hit the stores,
Hmm.
hiding the bottles back on the shelves because, once again, they're not tamper proof. Now, there was a few stores with CCTV, and a few credit cards. What am I trying to say? Oh, sorry. At the time, there was very few stores with CCTV and few credit cards since they
Yeah,
were still relatively
it was
new.
still yeah.
So there was no anti-tampering devices on Tylenol. There was very little footage, and credit cards were not used everywhere. Now, the task force predicted that the perpetrator um, took 7 hours to do this to 8 bottles.
That's a long time.
Yes, I mean you have to go. I don't know how many pills were in like each Tylenol bottle, but he had to empty out each one of them, fill
That's
them
true.
with,
That's true.
yeah. Now, what was interesting is that there was really just a lack of motive. There was no clear and intended victim.
Yeah. Like, why?
Yeah, just anyone that had the misfortune of buying a tainted Tylenol bottle. The task force thought it might have been um, a disgruntled employee that they from Johnson and Johnson. Um, so they
I guess that
started
makes
to,
sense.
question them. They also received help from the media, including the Chicago area's three major newspapers, which at the
Good.
time were the Sun Times, the Tribune, and the Daily Herald.
Good. So
Now,
they were really working on getting it like known and being proactive about like the media
yeah,
exposure and stuff. Yeah.
and now it's when the hard thing starts, like the investigation. There's no clear motive.
Yeah.
Why is this happening? Journalists posted the schedule of the victims' funerals, hoping that, sometimes the killer is out there
It
and he
shows
wants to
up.
show up to the
Yeah.
funeral just to like see his work. But there was no luck. Like no one really suspicious showed up during the funerals. There was undercover agents at the funerals, but there were no like individuals who looked out of place. So whoever did it didn't bother to show up to the funerals. Um, Now, the task force also set up hotlines looking for any tips. And of course, calls came in day and night. And the task force eventually found themselves with too many leads.
Too many.
Yeah. I mean, this is a nationwide issue, and like anyone with a lead can call in.
That's true. And so I'm sure they were backed up for so long. And
Yeah. The way it's a good comparison because the way the assistant U.S. attorney described it is as if you were trying to drink from a fire hose.
oh, that is a really good analogy,
Yeah. And I was like,
actually.
okay, like I see what you mean by too many leads. Like you can only
Ooh.
do so much.
I wonder, actually, like, I wonder what damage that would happen if you actually tried to, like, drink from a fire.
I'm sure that there could be some.
No, because
There's,
fire hoses are, like,
yeah,
powerful.
I was gonna be like, there's a
Like,
lot of pressure coming from them.
I feel like that could, like, break your teeth.
I wouldn't doubt it.
It could definitely really hurt you.
Yeah,
Anyway,
I
tangent.
leave some bruises. The whole thing. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
I don't even know if like the person would be able to like withstand the force, or if like they would just
They'd
get
probably
thrown
just
back.
fall backwards.
Yeah, that's what
Yeah,
I'm
there's
thinking
like
as
fall
well.
backwards or something. Yeah.
Now, something else. A body of a man was found with Tylenol in his pocket. Um,
Interesting.
so, of course, everyone is calling in. Um, Psychics called about clues found in olive jars. Um, I don't know. I don't have more about that. I just thought to bring it up.
Psychics
Yes.
found clues in olive jars.
Yes. We're not
That's
reading
one of the most
those.
like
We're
like
reading
insane things
olives.
I've ever heard. What kind of lead is that?
Yeah.
What?
And did it lead anywhere?
Nope. Hell no. Actually, I don't know, but
No, that's fair. Also, one man led police in a series of solid tips until they asked him for his source. And then he said that his source was a magic pen that gave him the answers.
a magic pen.
Pen.
Pen,
Pen.
dude.
Yeah.
Dude, I need a magic pen to give me all the answers.
So
Need
once
that.
again, like they were solid leads, and then this man's like, "Oh yeah, I got them from my magic pen," and they're like, "Okay, thank you. We'll move on to the next tip."
Thanks for your help.
Yeah. One housewife told them about a man selling a deadly concoction of apple cider door to door. And she said that she knew it was poisonous because the liquid was eaten right through the plastic.
Um, See, I want to believe that she was exaggerating with that, but also, who just makes up that like
Apple
some guy is
cider
selling you apple cider and it's
door to
burning through
door.
the plastic because of how like poisonous or acidic it is?
Uh
Like
huh.
what? That's just
Now, I'm not sure if the housewife that called
Wild.
bought some of the apple cider, but the FBI was sent some of the apple cider to test. It was sent to the lab for analysis, and the lab techs they ended up saying that when the apple juice ferments, it has enough acidity to burn through some containers.
Oh,
It was just basically bootleg apple cider vinegar.
that makes a lot of sense, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah. And if it's like some weird guy who's selling it who just made it at his house, I could easily see how that would ferment and be weird and turn into like a weird apple cider
Yeah,
vinegar.
yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
It's like, "Hey, you want some apple cider but also have a good time?"
Yes, I do. Hopefully I wake up tomorrow.
Hopefully it's not poisoned.
Yeah.
Now, there is let's see if I can open it because I have this article. Nope. I'll see if I can get it later. Maybe put it on the
Okay.
site. It's one of those that like requires you to like sign up for their memberships. But long story short, it was just gonna show like the timelines of the 7 people that got affected by the Tylenol
That would
poisonings.
be cool to see.
Like the time they took the pill, the time that they hit comatose, and the time like that they passed away. Now, unfortunately, there were no leads, no suspects until drumroll. Um,
Uh,
Johnson and Johnson received a letter from the killer himself.
no fucking way. No way.
Yes.
Okay, I want to hear this. I want to know what happens.
Now, I have the letter here, so I'll read it to you. And it says, Johnson and Johnson, parents of McNeil Laboratories. Gentlemen, as you can see, it is easy to place cyanide, both potassium and sodium, into capsules, sitting on store shelves. And since cyanide is inside the gelatin, it is easy to get buyers to swallow the bitter pill. Another beauty is that cyanide, I don't know what it's good spelling. I just can't read it because it's so old.
Okay.
Um, Another beauty is that cyanide operates quickly. It takes so very little, and there will be no time to take countermeasures. If you don't mind the the publicity of the little capsules, then do nothing. So far, I have spent less than $50, and it takes me less than 10 minutes per bottle. If you want to stop the killings, then wire $1 million.
Fuck.
Yeah, to bank account 8449597 at Continental Illinois Bank, Chicago, Illinois. Don't attempt to involve the FBI or local Chicago authorities with this letter. A couple of phone calls by me will undo anything you can possibly do.
What the fuck is
Yeah,
that supposed to mean?
exactly. Yeah.
Like he thinks he has so much like influence or something. My
Also,
God.
writing like, I don't know, he didn't show up to the funerals, like there was no clues, and out of
Yeah,
nowhere.
but like he wants more like attention or like he
Yeah.
wants a ransom. But I feel like it's like so long since the initial killings.
Yeah.
But but like I don't know, the timing of it just feels really weird.
Yeah.
But
It
also like uh, also like I don't know, I'm just thinking about the bank account. Like he gave a full is it can't like can't they like track a bank
Oh yeah,
account and see
definitely.
who it belongs to? Right? So like
Mhm.
why are you just giving your bank unless there's protections and shit or who's
Yeah, or like it's like
using
an
a fake
overseas bank
name
account with
or
like a fake name.
yeah, but this is a local bank,
Yeah, it's in
no?
Chicago,
Yeah, a
Illinois.
Chicago local bank. So weird. I don't know. Like it doesn't seem like this guy's would be doing this like for the money or for the attention because it didn't feel like there was a real motive at first, but also he would have sent this ransom sooner, I feel like, or wanting the money. I don't know.
No, like
Weird.
ideally you would want to send that ransom as soon as the news were like nationwide.
Yeah, as soon as it was found out about, like, yeah, it got a huge thing and caused that chaos.
Yeah, but it was a while. People were coming with, psychics,
Mhm.
apple cider, everything was coming
Yeah.
through, and then this letter comes to Johnson and Johnson.
Also, the guy sounds so, like, pretentious as well.
Oh
He's
yeah,
like,
yeah,
"Yeah, it only took me this long to do this, blah, blah, blah." He's like, "It only cost me $50 so far and
uh
10
huh.
minutes a bottle." Like, who the hell do you think you are?
Yeah, yeah. No, it's a crazy letter, especially because in cases like this, you don't normally like get anything from the killer. You either find him or you don't, or like he doesn't speak. Now, this was when the FBI finally had a lead because, of course, Johnson and Johnson passed a letter. Now, the letter did contain a partial fingerprint. So, the
Okay,
U.S. Department of Justice also directed the bank account to turn over financial records that were mentioned in the letter. So, like you said,
good,
there's a bank
good.
account name there. Hey, give us all that information. The interesting thing is that the bank account had been closed 5 months earlier.
What?
So the bank account that was on the
So
letter
it
was a closed bank
so
account.
it was not an active account,
No,
like, money couldn't even be transferred into it.
no, nothing could have been done.
Weird, okay, go on.
Yeah. Now,
Um,
the bank account did belong to Frederick Miller McKay, and he was an heir to the Miller Bruin fortune. Um, and investigators established that Frederick was not responsible for the letter, and authorities asked him for a list of names of anyone that could, seek to ruin his reputation. Frederick was the former owner, and he no longer existing Lakeside Travel Agency. So many of his ex-employees suspected that he had um, diverted company funds to pay his own personal bills. It just resulted in employees like final paychecks bouncing. So there was a lot of employees that their final paycheck bounced, which means there was a lot of employees that could have it out for Frederick. Now,
so,
go ahead.
yeah, a lot of people, and so, I mean, that's, I guess, lots of motive, um, behind it, but I don't know. Yeah, keep
Yeah,
going.
it would still get tracked down to you, like thinking about it logically. Like, I'm going to frame my boss. Well, there you have history with your boss. Now, given that the envelope and the letter was returned from Frederick's former business, um, his list that he gave to the authorities contained the name of four resentful employees, and one name was Robert Richardson, who was discovered to hold grudges and found his handwriting was a match to the letter
To
that
the letter.
they received from
Oh,
Johnson and Johnson.
shit.
Yes,
So they have someone.
they finally have like a solid lead, not coming from a psychic or a magic pen, but like from evidence that they have acquired. So, police attempted to apprehend Robert, but he and his wife Nancy have since left their apartment in Chicago's North Side for just an unknown destination. So,
So they just took off.
they just took off. Um,
Weird.
yeah,
Okay.
so a nationwide search was commenced, and the police
Mhm.
soon discovered that the names Robert and Nancy Richardson were not real. They were fake names.
Of course. Of course they weren't real. Of course they weren't real. Why would they be real?
Yeah, yeah. Their
Oh my
real
god.
names were James and Leanne Lewis.
Okay.
So, now they have it starts to like get more complicated because you're like,
Mhm.
finally we have proof. Now we have someone that's being framed. Which
Yeah.
of your employees is framing you? Oh, this guy, let's
Yeah.
find him. Oh, wait, that's not a real
Oh,
person.
that's not a real person.
Yeah, which
Okay,
makes
so
everything
now who
just
are we
more
looking for? Like,
suspicious.
what the fuck?
Yeah. So they did some investigating and they found out that James, just his background, was abandoned at the age of 3. And he was adopted by a childless couple. He had a rough
Mm,
childhood, but even as a child, he
of
was short
course.
tempered, reckless, and even violent.
Not no, not surprising. Why is it always the same with like murderers? I don't know.
They have something in common.
They do.
So he often flew into rages. In one instance, he chased his mother with an axe.
What the fuck?
Yeah, so it's not like I hate you, slam the door. It's like I'm gonna chase my mom with an axe. Um,
That's insane.
and in
How did
another,
like what? That's literally like
yeah,
murder in the making. I don't know.
yeah, definitely, definitely. Um, and in another issue, like another incident, he faced assault charges after breaking several of his father's ribs. Yeah,
How? How do you what? What like he beat him?
yeah,
Like
yeah.
like
He beat his
just
father, broke multiple
pummeled
ribs.
him?
Yeah, I don't think it was with an axe because that would have been mentioned, but like he beat his
Yeah,
father
and
with,
he probably would be a lot more injured if it
yeah.
was an axe.
Um,
Holy shit, like, I'm imagining him just, like, beating the fuck out of his dad.
oh,
Or,
definitely,
like, grabbing, like, a
definitely.
pipe or, like, a
Some sort of
bar
weapon.
or, like, something like that. Oh my
Yeah, to
fuck.
break just several of like your
Yeah,
father's
that's
ribs.
crazy.
Yeah. Now, I'm not sure like the dynamic between the parents and the son, but like he was a violent child.
Mhm.
He grew up as a violent person. And at one point, James was also hospitalized after overdosing with over-the-counter
Okay.
painkillers. And he was diagnosed with catatonic schizophrenia.
Fuck.
So yeah, he was diagnosed with ah
Catatonic
catatonic
schizophrenia.
schizophrenia.
Okay.
And he later said that it was all an act created by his family to avoid him being drafted to fight in the Vietnam War.
That actually kind of makes sense.
But at the same time, having such a violent child, wouldn't you want to send him away?
That's true, which I mean, would then kind of support the argument a bit more that, like, it was just an act.
Yeah, maybe.
I don't know, but also, like, they went pretty crazy, and, like, the it wasn't just, like, a report, like, the dad and mom, like, actually got like, the dad actually got
Yeah, he
beaten.
sustained injuries. Like there was
Yeah.
a whole case about that. And then the mom was
So,
chased
like
around with an axe.
yeah.
I mean, there
So, like, I
was,
don't know if just for, like, the story, they would actually, like, beat the father.
yeah, I mean, there was assault charges for
I don't
like
know.
breaking the
Yeah.
dad's ribs. Um,
That's crazy, and also, like, even if he doesn't get, like, drafted to go to the Vietnam War, like, his life is now
oh
ruined
yeah,
because he has this diagnosis and he's seen as this violent person.
yeah,
So either way, it's a lose-lose.
yeah. It's interesting.
Weird.
But
Okay.
despite all his troublesome behavior, he actually did pretty well in school. Um,
That's
yeah,
surprising.
because usually
That's a
like
shock.
whatever happens at home translate to like school as well.
Yeah,
But he ended up
but not in this
graduating high
case.
school, and he ended up attending the
Wow.
University of Missouri. Um, and it would be at the University of Missouri where he would meet his future wife, Leanne.
So so he got married and he lived a normal life. That's crazy.
If
Okay.
you could call it normal, remember he's on the run.
Yeah.
Now,
Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
it's
Yeah,
why we're
yeah, yeah.
talking about yeah. Um,
As normal as life could
yeah,
be.
for
Yeah.
him. It was said that when they were very devoted to each other, um, and they worked as bookkeepers for a tax service. Um,
Okay.
Once again, not a permanent thing because Lewis ended up like exploding over like a trivial matter. So
Of
they
course
kind of
he
went
did.
from job to job type of thing. Now, that's when the couple decided that, if we can't work for people, let's start our own business. So they started their own taxation business in Kansas City. Um, and this is where someone new comes into the picture. Raymond West became a client of theirs.
Raymond West. Okay.
Now, Raymond was a 72-year-old retired truck driver,
Okay.
and he lived alone. And on Monday, July 24th, 1978, a missing persons report was filed on his behalf
On
by a friend who just noticed that his car was in the garage of the home, but that there was no answer from the home when like the door would be knocked.
okay.
So,
So this was 78.
yes,
Okay.
1978. This was roughly about 4 years before the Tylenol poisoning happened.
Okay.
So we're getting some backstory of who this man was.
Yeah.
Now, there was a note on the door, and the door simply said, Ray is out of town until Thursday. For further, call Jim.
Who's Jim?
Their tax person.
Got it.
J
Got it.
yeah,
Got it. Got it. Got it. Got it.
James, Jim, his name changes a lot. But the police forced themselves into the home and they found another letter on the coffee table. And this letter read, Don't disturb until after 1 p.m. Sleeping late. Raymond.
Why was that just sitting there? What does that
Well,
mean?
a few things. First
What?
off, this was not in his handwriting.
Okay. Big piece of
Yeah.
info. Yeah.
And he also didn't call himself Raymond.
He probably called himself what, Ray
Probably Ray, yeah.
or something?
So 3 weeks later, on Saturday, August 14th, the police conducted a second search of Raymond's house. Um, and during the second search, they discovered a foul odor, and they ended up discovering bloody bed sheets in the bedroom. Once again,
Why didn't they check the first
I'm
time?
not sure if it was just because the friend was the one that went into the house, or I'm not sure how it went down. But it took them a while to find what they found.
Okay.
And once again, we always give our content warnings, so this is your second one. Um, but they also found a bloodstained lawn chair and a trash bag
Ooh.
that contained Raymond's toupee and his eyeglasses. And then upstairs, they found a foot long stain running from ceiling down to the wall. Um, and their officers made their way into the attic. Now, here,
So there was a blood
yeah,
stain going from up on the ceiling and it came down the
yeah.
wall.
You know, like blood?
And like above was like an attic
Yes.
going up. That's
Yeah.
crazy. Okay. So officers made their way up.
So that's when they went up to the attic and they found Raymond's decomposed and dismembered body. Now, the body was partially wrapped in sheets and garbage bags. It's going to get a little bit graphic, but his legs had been severed at the hip,
Fuck.
at the hip joint,
Fuck.
and they were placed along his head.
Like
I'm not
sticking
sure if they were
out
kind of like
like
here or like sticking out, or but they were
okay.
in the head area.
Weird.
Now, in addition to this, investigators discovered that $5,000 had been withdrawn from his bank account and paid to James Lewis, their tax person, and James Lewis was promptly arrested. Now, $5,000 back in that day in 2024, it would be about $23,000, 24.
Okay.
So a lot of
Well,
money being put
good
in a
chunk.
check,
Yeah.
red flags.
Yeah.
Now, when they arrested James, he said that the $5,000 was a business expansion loan, which was strange because Raymond was known to be tight with money and didn't really loan money out to people. So James was released from police custody because they really didn't have anything at the time. And they searched his home and car And that's where they found 20 feet of knotted white rope, a garbage bag, and a black case that contained papers and checks with Raymond's name on them. So, James was arrested. He was charged with Raymond's murder, a crime which he denied, of course.
Yeah.
And on October 1979, with only a few days before his trial was to begin, James' defense counsel argued that the police had no probable cause to arrest James, and that
What?
in addition to this, he wasn't read his Miranda rights at the time of the arrest.
Oh my God.
Now, he also argued that as Raymond's cause of death was unknown, um, yeah, of course, he was able to line up a series of witnesses to testify for Raymond, that Raymond had high blood pressure and a potent medication regimen, which both of which could have been responsible for his death. However, of course, this did not explain why his legs were severed and placed by his head.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the overwhelming evidence of how he died is shown right there by the fact that his body was dismembered and stuffed up in the attic.
Yeah.
I don't think drugs will do that.
No.
I don't think medication will do that. Sorry to tell you, but
Now,
that's crazy.
Unfortunately, in the end, because it's all about due process, and if like his Miranda rights were not read, there was no probable cause for the arrest.
Yeah,
The case was dismissed.
so the lawyer got it thrown
Yep.
out.
He did his
What
job,
the fuck?
which good for him. But at the same time, like at this point, you're like, it's my job, but like, what's my moral obligation?
That's a side note,
Yeah.
tangent. That's what I've always thought about like criminal defense lawyers. Like, how do you morally defend somebody who you know is
Yeah.
guilty? And I mean, technically, it's like innocent until proven guilty, but it's like a lot of times the person will literally like tell and like tell that they committed the crime to their lawyer, and then it's like you have to defend this person.
Yeah.
It's crazy to me.
No,
Whatever.
it really is very interesting how like where does that line lie? Where like morally, I cannot take your case, but like legally, I could represent you, type of thing.
Yeah.
I've always found that interesting
No,
as
but
well.
like, so they had like evidence, but the evidence wasn't the lawyer argued that it wasn't enough to give probable cause.
Yeah, and because he wasn't read his
That's
Miranda
dumb.
rights, I don't know if there was a search warrant or not. Like they could have just dismissed all that evidence because it was like illegally obtained.
I mean, okay, technically, like the first time they entered into the home was fine because they got a call from a neighbor.
Yeah.
But like the second time they entered it, I guess technically there was no reasonable suspicion.
Well, I'm talking about like when they searched like James' truck and they found like all this stuff. And like his house.
Got
Yeah.
it. Yes, wait, okay, so what was their like I guess what was their reasonable suspicion to search the
Well, I
truck
mean,
and
the
stuff?
reason I guess it was like the $5,000 that was written out for like James.
Yeah, but is I guess the lawyer could have argued like that wasn't enough.
Yeah.
In a way. So
anyway, no,
interesting.
the case was dismissed. And of course, James, and Leanne packed their lives and they moved to Chicago. They changed their names to Nancy and Robert Richardson, and the neighbors knew them as Bob and Nancy. So,
well, Bob and Nancy, the new kids on the block.
Yeah. Now, like always, it starts off quite normal. In Chicago, they seem to live a normal life, even when like Jim was bouncing between jobs. And soon, trouble started again. Because this was when Leanne started working as a bookkeeper for Frederick Miller McKee,
Okay.
which was the person that's bank accounts was closed, who ripped
Yeah.
his workers from their final paycheck. Once again, he was an heir to the Miller Brewing fortune. So we're all caught up from the past, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what ended up happening between Leanne and him was that her final check bounced for $512. And when Jim found out that the check had bounced, he reacted violently. Even though like Jim didn't work for the company, he was still angry about it. And because
Mm-hmm.
they've always lived paycheck to paycheck, those $512
Yeah.
might have really screwed them
It
over.
really, yeah.
Um, so on September 6th, 1982, under several different names, Jim and Leanne fled to Manhattan, and they checked into a board. And Leanne got a job on the 20th, which meant that they were never going to return to Chicago because now they had a job in Manhattan. Now, Jim's main defense as to why he couldn't have committed the Tylenol murder, like let's get back on track, um, was because he couldn't have committed them.
Wait, Jim or Bob?
Huh?
Jim or Bob?
Remember how he
Wait,
changed names quickly?
because he changed.
It's Jim.
Okay,
The
okay.
neighbors
So
knew
he
them as
changed
Bob
it.
and Nancy.
Got it. But then he changed again to Jim.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, got it. Okay,
Even though like his name is James.
got
Yeah,
it.
he went from like James to Jim to Bob.
To
Just it
Jim to
hops
Bob.
all over the
Okay, it
place.
bounced around. Okay.
Yeah. Now, the excuse that Jim used, like his defense that he couldn't have committed the Tylenol murders, was that he was in Manhattan on the 20th. You know, like he was living with his wife because she had just received a new job and he couldn't have, traveled, and like there was no motivation for him to like poison people.
Yeah.
But a former Johnson senior executive told ABC News that many close to the case flew into Chicago. Um, One of the clues could have been that he flew to Chicago, distributed the contaminated pills into the pharmacies, and then booked it out of town. But there
Plausible.
was really no
Yeah.
evidence. They just had the name. They're like, oh, he wrote the letter to Johnson and Johnson. We have to like bring him in and question him and get everything we can out of him. Now, on October 13th, a warrant was put out for Jim's arrest. Jim James. And then he told Leanne about the ransom note that he wrote. Um, you know, he came clean to his wife. He told, hey, Leanne, I wrote a letter trying to frame your old boss. And Leanne was shocked and she was angry. Now, yeah,
Yeah. Of course you would
because
be.
you're like, you
Yeah.
did what?
You did
It's a
what?
nationwide
Holy
case.
fuck.
Yeah.
Fuck you.
Now,
Yeah.
by mid October, their photos were broadcast nationwide. So,
So everyone knew what they looked
exactly.
like
So,
now.
staying hidden was getting harder and harder for them.
Yeah.
And 2 weeks into like them being at this hotel, the owner confronts Jim. But he doesn't know really from why or where. He just says that Jim looks oddly familiar. And that was more than enough to get Jim and Leanne to change their names again, and they fled.
Where'd they go to this time?
So we'll get into it. So they changed their names to Edward and Carol Scott.
Okay.
Now,
Kind of fun
yeah,
names.
but a few days later, one of Leanne's coworkers recognized her at their new location, wherever they moved, and called the police. So it's like, hey, my coworker, I
Yeah.
think she's the
Yeah.
person you're looking for.
Yeah.
Um,
So did they then change their names and move again?
so this is what happened. The coworker called the police, letting the police know that they were located in New York. Um, and that's when hundreds of cops and FBI agents arrived at the hotel. Um, they combed every inch, but you're right, they were gone.
They left
They
again. That's
booked it. They
crazy.
had everything in their trash bag ready to go. Now, while this whole chase was happening, there was a break in the town hall case
Okay.
because there was actually some footage um, of Paula Prince, the seventh victim. She was at a checkout line in Walgreens, and there was a man wearing a lab coat in the background watching Paula. Now, however, the image was, of
Weird.
course, grainy, but they could tell that the
Yeah.
man was wearing a lab coat. Um, he was not wearing glasses. He had short hair, and he had a large bushy beard. Now, they don't have more to go about this man. They just know that he looked suspicious because he was looking
Hmm.
at Paula like very intently, and they're like, "Is he looking at her because she grabbed a Tylenol bottle?" Now, a FBI behavioral profiler believed that the Tylenol murderer would try to stay ahead of his investigation. Um,
Yeah, makes sense.
which is what James could have been doing. And they were like, "Hey, if he doesn't live in Chicago because he's on, fleeing from the crime scene, he can't read local newspapers. So there's only one place where he would be able to read the newspapers: the libraries."
That's so
Yeah.
smart.
As soon as
That
I
is
read that,
so
I was like,
smart.
"Oh, you're right." I was like, "This is like the 1980s." Yep, yep. So finally, on December 13th, a library employee spotted someone suspicious. Now, while the suspect was like hunched over, like in a little study area in the New York City Public Library, um, the librarian worker, like they called the police. Two feral agents entered and they approached him from behind. They tapped him on the shoulder, and it turns out that it was Jim.
They got
Yeah,
him.
after like a
Let's
freaking wild goose
go.
chase,
Let's go.
Jim simply
Sick.
rose up, knowing that his time was up. He put on his glasses, and he was ready to get those handcuffs on him. Now, after he was
Wow.
arrested, the day after, Leanne turned herself in as well. Once again, most likely
Hmm.
because Jim got caught.
Yeah. I mean, she was, probably just, following after
Yeah,
him, following his lead. And so he gets caught. Well, what am I going to do now?
exactly. I
So,
mean, how is she going to flee if he was like the brains of fleeing and all of that?
yeah.
Now, after supposedly unhelpful interrogations, Leanne was released since authorities virtually had nothing to connect her to the Tylenol murders directly. They had things for Jim, but not for Leanne. Um, so she was released. As for Jim, they were able to connect him to Johnson and Johnson's by that extortion letter, um, and he was charged with attempt extortion.
Attempt.
Yes, because
Yeah. Okay.
Um, so almost a year later, his trial began. Now, the defense didn't actually aim to get money. The defense stated that Jim slash James slash this man didn't actually aim to get money from Johnson and Johnson, and therefore he wasn't guilty of extortion because the bank account was like already closed.
Uh, that's dumb, but
Yeah.
okay.
Now, this is where we get some, I don't know, justice. The lead prosecutor, and the U.S. attorney Dan Webb, he wasn't going to let him get off that easily.
Good.
So he said, and I quote: "The man who wrote the letter was mean. He was vicious. The man who was incentive, in, the man who was insensitive to human suffering. The man who was an evil, depraved opportunist on his own behalf. That man is it's you, James Lewis." End quote. So they all clearly had strong feelings towards this man.
Yeah.
And with that being said, the jury took several hours, um, and they found that 37-year-old Jimmy, or Jim, I don't know why I called him Jimmy.
Jimmy, Jim, James,
Yeah,
Bob.
they found Jim guilty of attempted extortion, and he faced
Hmm.
20 years behind bars. So
I guess that makes sense because they technically only got him for the extortion and not for the
Yeah,
murders,
so this is what ended up
right?
happening in the next
So,
couple years. He was released in
okay.
1955 on parole, and he returned to his other half, Leanne. You know, she was still waiting for him.
Mm-hmm.
And in 2010, Jim was forced to submit his DNA to investigators, you know, um, but nothing came out of it. So he was
Wow. So,
Jim. James is not the Tylenol poisoner, murderer. The question still remains: who is responsible for the Tylenol murders? Now, over the years, that
so he's never been
he's never
found?
been
Wait,
found.
so it wasn't James?
No,
So,
he was just someone that was really, really
like closely
closely
connected
connected
with it
to it.
somehow?
They went after him, but nothing really connected him to the Tylenol murders, just the extortion
That's
layer.
crazy. That's
Yeah.
crazy.
Now, throughout the years, the task force has dwindled down in numbers, and it
Yeah.
now has around 20 agents. It has really gone into a cold case to this day. But to this day, the FBI still has the Tylenol case as an open case. So any leads from anyone, send them their way. There's multiple theories as well as of who was responsible. Some people think, and we can like do a whole deep dive into like more of the theories
Oh,
because
I would
some people
love
think
to.
that he was shoot. I forgot the name, but like there was a bomber at the time as well. And because he
A
got caught and
Unabomber? I
trialed
don't
for
know.
bombing, like he was never connected to the Tylenol case. Um, other people
Oh, but they're like, oh, it could have been the same person, but they
they
just
put him behind bars for a different
overlooked it.
reason. Yeah.
Ah,
There's
okay.
plenty of theories out there, plenty of them. Unfortunately, this did lead to a lot of like copycats because then
Hmm.
other foods started to be tampered with. Um, and of course, that's when like the companies were like, we gotta like have everything be like anti-tamper.
Good on them. However, not really good on them because why didn't they do it sooner
I think
after the
it's
Tylenol?
so stupid, but it reminds me of a story. I don't know where I heard this from, if it was like a video somewhere online or from someone. But they're like, it's one of those stupid rules that like was put in place because something happened. You know, like there was never
Yeah.
tampering, so there
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
never
Yeah. Yeah.
like a reason to like have them be like anti-tampering.
Fair. Yeah.
The story I'm thinking of is that there was like someone was talking about like Girl Scouts camp or something, or like some sort of like summer camp, and they're like, "Oh yeah, just like don't paint your nails any bright colors, like your toenails." And they're like, "What?
Hmm.
Why is that a rule?"
Like
And
what?
and they're like, "Oh, a
Why?
couple
What?
years ago, like some girl painted her nail like before the rule, some girl painted her like nails like bright red type of thing, and she like put her feet in like the river, and like a crab or something started to like nibble at her feet." Like try to eat it because it thought it was like a berry or something.
Because like a fish or
Yeah.
something like that.
So it's like
Yeah.
it's a
Because the
stupid
bright
like
red.
rule, but it's there for
That's
like a
funny.
reason.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that's the case of the Tylenol murders. I hope you enjoyed it.
That's
I know
crazy.
it was a roller coaster for it to be a cold case.
I was so ready to be like, and then that led to him being connected with the murderers, and he
Nope.
explained why he did it and what happened, how he did it. So it was never found. So the guy who in that camera footage who was wearing that lab coat, so that was not
I
James,
don't
and
think it
that
was
guy was never
James because
found.
I have to see a picture of James and then I have to like look for that footage. Because they said that he wasn't wearing glasses and James was when he was caught at the library, but he could have just taken them off for that moment or something. Once again, he
Weird.
was just like a suspect.
I mean, he seems like a smart enough person, but not necessarily like I guess smart or cunning enough to like do those Tylenol
No,
murders.
definitely not. The reason,
Like it feels like a different like MO, different
yeah, the reason
person.
he got involved was because his wife got screwed over. So
Yeah,
that's when he got involved.
that's so
Yeah,
interesting.
yeah. So hope you liked it. What
Wow,
do you have for
I
us?
did. That was good. Um, give me a second longer to
No,
process
yeah,
that a
go
bit
for it.
more.
It's I did a lot of research into this one, and there's podcasts out there that have like 4 or 5 parts on the Tylenol murders. Like they go like in depth. There's a few documentaries as well. I listened
Yeah.
to as much as I could, but at some point, like my brain just can't focus because it deviates so much into the theories. And
Yeah.
I'm
And
like,
no, we definitely could just have another second part of this and just talk about theories,
yeah,
and you could share more of that. That would be fun. So I
listeners, if
definitely
you
see
want more
why.
theories of the Tylenol murders, reach
Yes.
out.
Let us know if you have theories of your own.
Yes.
Reach
Yeah,
out. Let us
do your research.
know.
Tell us what you think your theory was.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Tell us what you think of the Tylenol
Um,
murders because that was a huge case.
cool. So, for my paranormal case today, our case takes us to Southington, Connecticut,
Ooh.
which is a really funny name.
Southington.
Southington. Yeah. So Southington, Connecticut, it's a small cozy town. It's close to being right in the center of Connecticut, like on the map. The people, of course, they were close knit, like most small towns are. Already, side note, I want to know what it's like to live in a small town, to be honest, because I feel like it'd be so interesting to like just know everybody. I don't know.
I don't know if I can
I don't
like.
think I'd prefer it, but I want to know what it's
Yeah, I
like.
don't know if I can relate to it because I technically grew up in a small town, but I was a child. We moved away when I was like 9 years old. So, as a 9 year old, a small town doesn't feel like a small town to you. It's like a big city.
Fair.
Um,
Yeah.
and then we moved. So, yeah, I don't think I've ever lived in a small town either.
Fair. Yeah. So it was like most other small towns, Not too much happened until 1986 when a new family moved into town.
Ooh.
And what would happen next would send the community into a frenzy. Southington would now be filled with chaos that had never been seen before.
I feel like I know this story, but I don't know it until you say the name.
You probably
I mean,
do.
it might just sound familiar. Like every story starts like this. Like everything changed when this one family moved down the block.
It does. It
It's a horror
does.
movie.
Everything changed. Oh my
It's the
god.
plot line for a horror movie.
Um,
That's
yeah.
basically what it is.
So it pretty much is. That's how so many of them are. um, so our story, it revolves around the Snedeker family, spelled Snedeker. Snedeker.
Snedeker.
At least that's how I pronounce it.
Okay.
But yeah, about them, revolves around them. So I'll get started with a bit about them. The Snedekers didn't really have it easy. They struggled a lot. Their family was very busy, but also had a lot to take care of. The parents, the kids as well. So the father, his name was Alan. Alan was a stonemason, really a former stonemason. He was kind of retired at this point, but he did struggle with alcoholism for a bit. So the stresses that came from it.
Question.
Yeah.
Never mind. Keep going. Because I confuse stonemason with Freemason. But you're good.
Okay.
Keep going.
Got it. I do it all the time. He built things. He didn't
Yeah.
practice like culty religion. Anyway, well maybe he did. Who knows?
On the side.
Yeah. He was a he was a stonemason and a Freemason. Who knows?
Mm.
So, Alan, he was the father. Carmen, the mother, was also just barely scraping by as a waitress while she was in between jobs.
Okay.
So their financial situation wasn't great, especially living in upstate New York. And especially because of the fact that they had 5 kids to support.
Shit. I was going to ask you if they had any kids.
Yeah.
5 kids.
Alan and Carmen, 5 kids. So 4 of them were their own.
Okay.
So they had 4 children of their own. Philip, Bradley, Alan Jr., and Jennifer. And the fifth was Carmen's niece, Tammy,
Oh, so
who
only
lived with
4 of
them
them
as
were,
well.
like, their kids.
Yes, 4 biological children and then 1
Okay.
niece who lived with them. Yeah. So Alan and Carmen had a lot on their plate, and of course the kids could feel that too. Especially when the oldest son, Philip, was diagnosed with Hodgkin's lymphoma,
Oh, how
a
old
type of
was
lymphatic
he?
cancer. He was around 12 or 13, I
Okay.
believe. Yeah. So it was pretty bad. He got diagnosed. And because of this, the family had to travel a lot down to the University of Connecticut hospital for Philip's
I was
treatment.
gonna ask,
That's
was
really
that
the
for the
only
treatment? Yeah.
place. Yeah, it was for his treatment, the only place they could really go. And so they would often, a lot of times, their family, they'd go down there
And
for
this was in the
trips or whatever.
1980s or 1990s?
Yes,
Okay.
1980s, around 1985,
Okay.
1986. Yeah. Of course, this was way too tiring, way too time consuming, and the money spent from just going back and forth was way too much. So the family decided they needed to move closer to the hospital,
Okay.
right? So the search for a new home began. Um, they definitely did some looking around, some searching, and so the Snedekers, they looked for a home, and to their surprise and excitement, they found an amazing deal on a 5-bedroom, 2-bathroom home located at 208 Meriden Avenue.
This sounds very familiar. I can't put my finger on it. And it's not at the tip of my tongue. It just sounds familiar. But go ahead.
Okay. So they found a home located there, Southington, Connecticut, and so of course they jumped at the opportunity. It was a great price. It was surprisingly affordable compared to living in New
Of course,
York.
yeah.
And on June 30th, 1986, they moved into the house. So we're right about in the middle of June of 1986 or so. Um, it was nice. You know, Philip was able to get the care he needed a lot quicker. They were way closer. Um, it was a decent price. It was space for all of them. With the 5 bedrooms were good. It was sort of like a duplex, like multiple, like two. I think it was 2 stories.
Okay.
Um, so it was a decent, you know,
I mean, 5 rooms, 2
size
bathrooms. That's
place.
a big
Yeah,
house.
and I'll definitely send some pictures
Okay.
later, and we can post those as well. But yeah, moving in was a smooth process. Everyone chose the rooms that they wanted. Um, the older sons, Philip and Bradley, they chose to move in together
Okay.
because they both chose to live down in the basement of the house.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay, wait. So the family is 7. So
Yes.
that means okay, wait. I'm just trying to figure out how the room situation went because, like, the husband and
So it's
wife
probably
have 1
one
room.
for the husband and wife, one for Philip and
Yeah.
Bradley, the basement, one for um the other son, what's his name? Alan Jr.,
Okay.
one for Jennifer, and one for Tammy.
So by 5 bedrooms, is the basement like also consider a bedroom?
I
Or
guess
did they have
so.
a guest
I,
bedroom, an office space? It's fine.
I
I'm
guess
just
the basement would be considered a bedroom or
overanalyzing
like
it.
or I don't know. Maybe yeah, maybe they just had an extra
Yeah, like a
bedroom
guest
and they're
room or
like
a
yeah, or like
You know
and so
what?
instead
No,
of
I
that,
think it makes sense because if they have 1 bedroom for 2 kids, they're like, "It's too small for both of us. Can we do the basement?"
that's
That
true.
makes more sense.
I mean, in some reports, I don't believe it is, but in some reports, it lists only like Philip, the oldest son, as living down in the basement.
Okay.
And if that were the case, then maybe Bradley could have taken the
Next.
extra
Okay.
bedroom,
So maybe at some point they slept together and then at another
something
point
like that. Yeah,
they
yeah,
they split. Okay.
yeah.
Got it.
Um, but honestly, a pretty cool choice. I think living down in a basement like it gives them like some good privacy. Um, And then it was so funny. I was reading an article and they're like, oh, we don't really know why. It was like, maybe because of the teenage angst or the need for being
Uh-huh.
alone or being in the darkness, or since Philip was so, you know, with his cancer and he was so weak, he just wanted to be like alone in the basement type of. I just thought it was funny how
Interesting.
they
How
were
people have like
describing
their
it.
theories of why he was in the basement.
I guess
Yeah.
so.
I
Yeah.
think it could be just a combination of things, you know? I
Yeah.
think it's kind
He
of
was a kid and he
cool.
thought it would be cool to live in the basement.
Especially because I think
Yeah. I
like
don't
the
know.
basement would be larger than like the bedroom. Yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, he was about let's say 16 at this
Okay.
point. No, what? 73. No, he was about 13 or 14 at this point, I
Okay.
believe. Yeah. Anyway,
That's where he slept.
yeah.
Cool.
So they moved down into the basement. Um, but what they weren't expecting to find though, um, was the hidden collection of old mortuary equipment down there. So tools that were found. Go ahead.
This sounds oddly familiar. You can um decline to answer this question, but was there a movie made from this story? You could just move on.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, keep going. I still don't know
Yeah.
what the story is, but like it's because like
Okay.
certain
Got
yeah.
it. Um, so yeah, they found a bunch of old, like outdated mortuary equipment that was just sort of like stored semi like hidden down in the basement. Um, there was more exploring to do. And so um they looked around the house, they checked in the old drawers that were left behind when they purchased the home, and sure enough, inside they saw photographs of
Oof.
the deceased, people being prepared for
Yeah.
funerals, for burials. Um, there was a coffin
So
room
this
with
was at
pieces of
some
old
point like a
coffins.
functioning like mortuary? Is that the word? Yeah.
Exactly, yeah, yeah. Um, coffin pieces that startled them, and on some extended parts of the property there were gravestones, which of course marked where bodies had been buried.
See, as a child I would
um
find that scary, but now I would find that kind of cool.
I would still think it's like a bit of both
Yeah.
today, I think. I don't
Yeah.
know. But yeah, you called it. The Snedekers had unknowingly moved into the town's old funeral home, the
Wow.
Hallahan funeral
The
home.
Hallahan Funeral Home.
And that's why they got such a good deal on it,
That
right?
makes
Because
sense.
it was this closed down funeral home,
In this economy,
and they
I
didn't
would take
check.
it as well.
You literally, and they were financially struggling, so it was like easy choice for
Yeah.
them. Um, but yeah, so of course they checked with the home's like previous owner, who sure enough confirmed it used to be the Hallahan funeral home. Um, they were essentially like they were a tad iffy with it at first, but they were like, we've already committed. We already bought this
Yeah.
place, and really, it's not that bad of a thing. We're close. We can get our son his treatment that he
Yeah.
needs. So it didn't really deter the Snedekers. They continued living
Yeah, it's
there.
all
Um,
pros versus cons, especially when it comes to like children's health.
exactly, yeah. Um, so yeah, that didn't deter them, but neither did the small signs of paranormal
Ooh,
activity
okay.
that would begin shortly after they
Got it.
moved
Okay.
in. Yeah.
What does it start with?
So some reports say things started as soon as the first night that they moved in. Um,
Okay, like right off the bat. Welcome home.
right off the bat, welcome inside. But things started out pretty tame, right?
It always does.
Nothing crazy at first. It always does. It always escalates. Anyway, um, it would quickly escalate. But yeah, it started out pretty tame. Um, just weird, bizarre sounds were described. Things like, bangings on the walls, knocking, scratching sounds coming from all over the
Mhm.
house. Um, there was a dumbwaiter in the house.
Yes.
It was a big
Okay.
dumbwaiter because it was used to bring bodies
Oh,
down to the
oh.
basement.
Was it like
S-
big, like you would lay a body in there?
I honestly haven't really seen it. Let me see.
Because normally they're quite small.
Small, yeah. Um,
If you can't find it, it's fine. I'm
yeah, I
just
don't know.
curious
I'll
about
definitely
it. Okay.
check and I'll show you in a bit. Yeah. Um,
But it was a large one. Like,
but yeah,
people
so
could
there
fit in there.
a person could fit in there,
Okay.
yeah, a body or something. But yeah, it was, not used. There was nothing in it, but sometimes the chains would kind of
Rattle.
rattle, clamber up and
Okay.
down as if something maybe was, pushing it up and down a bit. Um, it turned into more
Okay.
things. The kids, they reported that they would see lights flickering on and off. Um, they would even see ghosts walking through the house.
Ah, so there was apparitions
Um,
early on.
There was, yeah. But of course, Carmen, their mom, their parents, she chalked it up to their overactive imaginations. They were all kids. They were
Yeah,
all like
especially because, like, oh, right, there's a
around 10 and
ghost at a
under.
funeral home.
Right?
Or,
Like,
like, at the
of
mortuary
course
house.
there
Yeah.
is.
Yeah.
Yeah. Come on, you guys are being children.
I can
Whatever.
see how, like, someone would,
Um,
like, write that off as, like, "Oh, kids
yeah.
are just being kids,"
Oh,
because, like,
100%.
we
Honestly,
live
I would probably
yeah,
write
it's
that
like we live
off.
in a haunted house type of thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Um, Alan, their dad, he got so upset at their misuse of the electricity because he thought they were the ones, turning on and off the lights and
Oh.
stuff, that he actually just started to remove light bulbs from the house.
No. That's
And
such a
so
dad
that
thing
is
to
sort
do,
of
though.
documented. That is such a dad thing to do, right? Um, it's super funny. Um, but of course, things were a little less innocuous, I guess.
Mhm.
Things they could feel, like the temperature dropping. They said that it could be like the middle of July, the middle of the summer. One room in the house would just be ice cold. They'd go to the room next over, and it would just be a normal room temperature. Um, these like piercing coldnesses, they would disappear um, as quickly
As they
as it
came, yeah.
happened in a way. Yeah.
Okay.
Eventually, they did start to, I guess, see more detailed apparitions that would show up. Um, there was a hallway that led down to the coffin room, I believe, and so pretty early on, um, pretty early on, it was sort of Philip, the oldest son, who started to have more of the
Because he was
experiences.
also
He
sleeping
was
in the
maybe
basement,
targeted a bit
right?
more. He was sleeping in the basement. He was, a bit, I guess, weaker because of cancer
Yeah.
and his treatments and everything like
It
that.
also makes sense that if they were both sleeping in the basement and, like, things start to act up, the other one might have gotten scared, it's like, "I'm gonna move into the bedroom."
That could be
Could have
true. That could be
been,
true,
but
yeah.
yeah, okay.
It was actually described that Philip started to see um there's actually so there was a documentary filmed in 2002 about this with actual like interview questions and talkings to Carmen,
Mm.
the mom. And so in some of these interviews she stated, quote, "My son started seeing this young man with long black hair down all the way to his hips. He would talk to my son every day. Sometimes he would threaten him, other times he would stand there and just say his name, which was enough to scare
Like,
him."
the kid's name, like, Philip.
Philip. Yeah,
I don't like that.
Philip. No, me neither.
I don't like how you know my name.
um no, seriously. Um However, kind of related, kind of
Fair.
not. I thought it was kind of cool when I heard my name from the spirit box.
Oh, fair, fair.
When we were doing the
Yeah.
investigation.
No.
The high kai was really
Yeah.
cool.
No, that's
I don't
definitely
know.
cool,
I was
though.
like, hey. Um
See, but at that point, it's different
yes.
because at that point, like, you're actively wanting to hear something. This kid was
Yeah,
just
yeah,
trying to
yeah.
probably, like, sleep or something. Yeah.
Yeah. So there was that one apparition, the tall, pale, long, dark hair. There was another one, another form of a man who's described as having whitish colored hair, wearing a pinstripe tuxedo, who
Okay.
would be in the house. Um,
So, multiple
so
apparitions
yeah,
of different ghosts.
multiple apparitions that would show up, and these were most commonly, if only, seen by
Uh-huh.
Philip here in the house. Um,
Do you know if they were, like, seen in the basement or, like, other parts of the house?
I think parts of the
Okay.
house, I think, like, lots of, like, the long hallways or even, like, the
So it
corridor kind of
wasn't
leading
just,
down
like,
to the coffin
because he
room.
was in the basement, he was seeing them everywhere.
No,
Okay.
yeah, it was throughout the house, and, like, also with the other kids who were seeing things as well, it was all throughout,
Mhm.
all the sounds
Okay.
all throughout and everything. Yeah. So it was just apparitions, just visual
Mhm.
things, I guess, except for maybe a bit of the physical with the
Yeah,
temperature, the
or, like, hearing,
coldness,
like, the chains rattle, things like that.
until there was one evening when Carmen, the mom, she said she was taking a shower, and the shower curtain began to cling to her body, which,
Ah!
yep, yeah, yeah. She claimed that it like clinged and wrapped itself and eventually kind of like constricted
I already have,
in
like,
a
a
way, like her face,
uh
and like choked her a
no,
bit.
I already have, like, a hate relationship with, like, shower curtains, especially, like, when they touch
Yeah,
you.
no, yeah. Oh, the
Yeah, because 'cause
feeling
they're
is
wet
just
and you're
gross, and
wet,
it's
and
like,
it's
oh,
just
what's
like,
on the
no. So the
yeah,
fact that no. Okay, go ahead.
yeah. It's like when Callum got wrapped up
No!
in the in the rug.
It's all over
Oh
again, and then he
my.
got cold.
And then he did.
It's a shower curtain.
Oh my god.
Ugh,
Um,
it hits too close to
and
home.
apparently, like, she got wrapped up and then, like, she got blinded by shampoo
Yeah, okay.
because she was, washing her
Yeah.
hair. Um, Eventually, Tammy sort of, like, was able to hear, like, the muffled
Oh, shit,
screams. So
okay.
Tammy, her niece, and so she ran in and she, like, unwrapped the curtain from her, um, and it's, neither could explain what
Yeah, so
happened as far
Tammy
as I
saw her, like,
can tell.
fully wrapped up with the shower curtain.
Apparently, as the recount goes, yeah.
Oh, wow.
So this wasn't just,
I think
like,
that's scary from both sides, though.
isolated.
That's scary because
Yeah,
you're getting
yeah,
suffocated by your shower curtain, and that's scary because you run into the bathroom and you see your aunt being, like, all wrapped up and, like, struggling.
yeah.
Wow.
It just got worse. Um,
Is it rugs now?
Carmen kept getting hopefully not. Um, uh, Carmen kept getting assaulted, by whatever this unseen force was. So attacks, very forcefully said she was, like, slapped in the face. Um,
So, the son was seeing all the apparitions, and then Carmen was suffering all the physical damage.
yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Um, I actually have, um, sort of a quote. Let me see. Um, I guess not necessarily a quote, but, like, it's very commonly described, or I want to say that I read somewhere, that Carmen said that she repeatedly was, like, raped and assaulted by whatever this unseen force
What?
was. Um,
Like, full
yeah.
whoa. Okay, so things definitely jumped at some point.
Yeah.
Wow.
No, and it gets crazy. So and this happens almost, like, on a daily basis, it seems, from what I've gathered.
Yeah.
Um, and so they just kind of let this happen. Like, they didn't, like, run, they didn't
I mean,
leave the
when you
house.
purchase a house, it's a
They
huge commitment, and because they're struggling financially, I can see why they couldn't. But at the
yeah.
same time, she is getting physically assaulted, sexually assaulted in her
Yes.
own home by, like, an unseen force.
Yeah.
Like, the one place you're supposed to feel safe.
It's your
Yeah.
home, and, I know, like, we've covered other cases of, like, haunted being living into a haunted house, or even, um like, in one of our TikToks we did, covering, like, the Conjuring
Yeah.
house, and it was like, "Oh, you moved into your dream home," and you realize
It's not.
it's like,
It's a nightmare.
I'm out of there immediately. Like, I'm
Yeah.
leaving. Like, I'm not staying. But yeah, Carmen, she said she was too scared to actually report any of
Yeah.
this. Like, she never told her husband or anything.
Because
So
how do you tell your partner? How do you tell your
how do you
husband of
explain
like,
that?
hey, I
Yeah.
know we moved here for the kids, treatment, but
Yeah.
I've been getting like
Mm-hmm.
assaulted by this invisible thing in the house. Like,
Yeah.
first off, you have to like assume that he's not going to believe you, and then she probably assumed something else, and then she's like, I'll just keep it
Mm-hmm.
to myself.
Yeah, because from what I've read, it doesn't seem like anything happened to Alan, to the dad.
Oh,
Um, like, and nothing happened to Alan. Nothing, I guess, really happened like paranormal to like Jennifer, the
yeah.
sister, or Alan Jr. Or at least no like described direct experiences from them. Tammy though, did claim that she was assaulted one time.
Hmm.
Um, this is where like a rug kind of comes into play a bit.
No, I was joking about that.
Well, it's more of
Okay, go
a
ahead.
quilt from her bed. But she described that a quilt from her bed, it just levitated all the way up to the ceiling in her room. She saw figures manifest, with unexplained whispering as well while she was in her room. But nothing like super major, I think, that happened with Tammy.
Okay, that's wild though.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
go ahead.
Philip and Carmen got it the worst, but things got really
Really bad.
bad for Philip because at some point his family and Carmen described him as just having a bizarre, sudden, just change in
Like
personality.
withdrawal.
He, like he became mean and cruel and cold,
Oh.
um, and rude. It was just not like him, uncharacteristically like him.
Mhm.
Um, so that along with
Everything else.
other things, with other experiences, it just started to get worse. It felt like there was more evil and the terror happened.
Yeah.
Um, there was one time when Carmen, mom, she said she was mopping the floor inside. Um, the water, it turned into blood and it just smelled like rotting
Yeah.
flesh.
Oh.
She said, quote, "The mop water was blood red. I mean, a deep, deep red. It made my skin
Yeah.
crawl. I started getting nervous that I was ruining the floor."
I can picture like
End
a
quote.
brownish red. That's what I picture.
Yeah. Um, so, you know, things got worse. And apparently with Philip's behavior and his cruelty, that cruelty went over into like punishments for his younger siblings.
No.
Um, yeah. So, apparently one time Philip put Bradley on like a gurney, like a medical gurney,
Yeah.
funeral home, and just like spun him around just endlessly
Mhm.
until Bradley was like in tears
Yeah,
begging
to
him to
stop.
stop. Um, Philip would lock
Holy
Bradley
fuck.
like in a chest and just leave him there. Um, but probably the worst case, the worst incident was when Philip directly just attacked Tammy, his cousin.
Like just start like
Um,
beating her up?
yeah, I'm not exactly sure what happened, but attacked her. She was so badly injured that she had to spend 45 days in the
Holy
hospital.
fuck.
Yeah. Um,
That's
a
severe.
lot. A lot of time. Yeah. No, 100%. It's crazy. Okay. So that happened. Of course, because of what happened with Philip, his behavior couldn't be ignored anymore. He was like psychologically
Yeah.
evaluated. He was brought in. He was diagnosed with schizophrenia.
Okay.
Um, After he kind of described sort of the visions, the apparitions, the entities that he was
And they
seeing.
start seeing his behavior as well. Okay.
Exactly. But the thing was, the medication and such that he was
Didn't
on
help.
from like his treatments, they weren't necessarily things that could trigger hallucinations or like trigger
Oh, got it.
schizophrenia, anything
Okay.
like that. But still, it was weird. But it got bad. It got bad things felt evil. It got so bad that they needed help. The Snedekers needed help. So, who'd they bring in?
Ghostbusters.
Of that time, yeah. Ed and Lorraine Warren. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Good.
Yeah.
They
So
brought in some
Ed and Lorraine
professionals.
did investigate, professional.
They're very controversial, but for
Yeah.
this story, professionals.
Yeah. This isn't one of their bigger cases, honestly. This was a pretty small thing. So Carmen called the Warrens, letting them know of the situation. So the next day, the Warrens arrived at their house, along with a priest. So there was like a general blessing, like exorcism type of thing on the house. It happened September 6th, 1988.
Okay.
So 2 years after they moved into the house.
Okay.
So
they have been putting up with this for 2 years, and it just kept getting worse and worse.
The experiences happened a lot, yeah. So they brought in the Warrens, and that initial blessing did nothing.
If anything, it's going to make whatever's there more mad.
Yeah. So like the Warrens do, they did their research, right? They, of course, found out that it was a funeral home. It was built in the 1920s. And so the Warrens, they stayed at the house for over the span of a couple of weeks, to try to figure out these experiences for themselves.
Yeah.
So what they found out was that one of the funeral workers, back when it was still a funeral home, supposedly was convicted of committing necrophilia in the morgue. Like in probably the basement or something like that.
Yeah. Oh, that's dark. Oh.
Yeah. And they sort of theorized that it could have been attached to some sort of like satanic ritual or something like that. But the general thing that the Warrens believed was that since it was such a grotesque, heinous act, this necrophilia, right? It sort of like almost was like a satanic type of thing, and it really led and sort of welcomed those satanic
it opened up a door type of
into
thing.
the home. Exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So they did their investigations. Along with them, they actually also brought their nephew. His name was John Zaffis. John was with them as well. And apparently one of the more crazy, bizarre occurrences was one night John was there, and he experienced what's called phantomania. So it's essentially sleep paralysis, but like has more of a supernatural or paranormal basis to it.
Okay.
I don't really know how it would differ from sleep paralysis.
No, you're good. Yeah, that's what I'm trying to figure out as well.
So he was experiencing that, but at the exact same time, apparently Carmen was also experiencing the exact same thing.
Oh.
And they actually were seeing the same visions, apparently, like at the same time while they were in the house.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah. So there was the more investigations. They continued. The Warrens, they brought up the Bishop of Hartford, one of the people I believe that they mainly worked with.
Okay.
They needed a lot more help, so they did a lot more blessing inside of the home, and they actually held a like sacred like mass, like a Catholic mass inside. Apparently, Ed Warren, he suffered from a mild heart attack during this. And he believed that it was like the demonic entities that were like attacking. Like that.
Keep going.
So they did the exorcism, this big exorcism was the one that happened on September 6th, 1988. This is the one that apparently was enough to weaken the spirits and sort of drive them out in a way. There
Mm-hmm.
was not much more supernatural, like
Activity
paranormal
afterwards.
activity after that, and so they felt that it was, successful.
Mm-hmm.
I believe, that they described it, just felt lighter inside of the
Okay.
house. Um, so of course, because of this and the fact that they got the Warrens involved, it began to circulate, right? People picked up on it. The media got a hold of it. People were coming in to try to write books, and
Yeah.
people even reached out to the Warrens to get
Yeah. Ed and
their
Lorraine Warren gets
things.
involved, and the media is right there.
Exactly. And so, like I mentioned at the very start, it turned this small, quaint little town into some huge
Yeah.
ordeal at this point. Um, that's pretty much where it goes as far as the paranormal.
Okay.
So there were those things that happened, but I think the most interesting part about this paranormal case to me is the theories behind it.
Oh. Like what?
In particular, one theory as an explanation for all of this,
Mm-hmm.
that it was all for attention, right? It was all something created by leveraging
The
the weakness
house.
the weakness from Philip and his treatments and
Yeah.
things that maybe he was seeing. And um I might have lost the one of the quotes, but um yeah, I think I lost it. But they said apparently Carmen and like Alan, they would claim that like the activity got the worse when they were in more financial trouble.
Huh.
So if you could donate and give money to them, then things would get better, type of
Oh,
thing.
okay. I was
Something
gonna
like that.
follow up that with like
Um,
if they benefited financially in any way.
yeah,
So they did.
yeah.
See, so
Um,
that I would say that theory holds some ground. I just don't know how much.
so yeah, let me spend a second just to try to find
Yeah, that's fine.
this
Go for
quote.
it.
Yeah, so yeah, they went public with all of their experiences. So people thought, it was a scheme to make
Yeah,
money, or
attention,
they
publicity.
planned it. Um,
You have a
uh,
sick child, you want some
yeah,
attention, you want someone to
yeah.
help feel bad. Yeah.
In some interviews, there's some friends of Philip that were interviewed, it says, and one of them, man named Jeffrey Pooler, he said, quote, he was a storyteller. He always had to be the center of attention,
Mm,
in reference to Philip.
yeah.
So, so after those like exorcisms and the paranormal activity ended, they moved out
Oh,
the
okay.
family. So there were new owners afterwards, and so um, there's another quote from the owner of the house in 2009, a woman named Susan Trotta Smith. She said, "quote We lived in the house for 10 years. Our house is wonderful.
Hmm.
This is all Hollywood foolishness. The stories are all ludicrous."
Yeah.
Um, so there's things like that.
See,
And
and then I
we've
feel like ah,
yeah.
if Ed and Lorraine Warren were not involved, and then things died down, and then they moved out, and then this family moved in, and they made this comment, I'm like, yeah, it makes sense that it was like made up. But I have mixed like because Ed and Lorraine Warren got involved. They don't just like take any case. Like they will listen to you, but the fact that they were involved, I don't know how much there is to it.
Yeah. One last thing I do want to add onto it
Yeah.
though is um, something I find really funny, really interesting, honestly. Um, so one of the big reasons why this story gained popularity and came to light was because a man named Ray Garton, he published a book called In a Dark Place, The Story of a True Haunting. So that was published in 1992.
Okay.
And so there are some interviews on like he wrote, how he came to have this book written. So Garden, He was actually hired by Ed and Lorraine
To write the
to
book.
work with the Snedekers, write the story.
Okay.
So Garden, he was going to interview all of the family members about their experiences, but he realized, quote, I found that the accounts of the individual Snedekers didn't quite mesh. They couldn't keep their stories straight. I went to
Ah.
Ed with this problem. And he says, Ed said, oh, they're crazy. You've got some of the story. Just use what works and make up the rest. Just make it up and make it scary.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, it's things like that that like make Ed and Lorraine Warren very controversial. Um, I don't know. It's they were definitely huge in the paranormal and like world.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
I know
yeah.
that they wrote a lot of books. Well, they had like at least 3 books that they wrote. Um, and because of the profit they were making from the books and people, having them be speakers, that's the reason they were able to like not charge for like their investigations or for like their helping people out. But at the same time, I don't know. There's a lot of mixed feelings surrounding them, and we'll get into that later.
Yeah.
But this is about this.
Definitely, yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's what Ed said. And Garden, he continued by saying, he did what he was told. He, quote, I used what I could, made up the rest, and tried to make it as scary as I could.
Uh-huh.
So
Wow.
Who knows how true this case is?
Yeah.
And I don't know. Do you listeners, do you Jay, what do you guys
Wait,
think?
so what is
Do
this
you
case
think this
known
place was
as? And what is the
haunted?
movie?
The Haunting of Connecticut. Or The
Okay.
Haunting in Connecticut.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah. The Snedeker house, the Snedeker family haunting, typically The Haunting in Connecticut,
Okay.
though.
Okay.
So what do you guys think? Do you think the stories are true? Do you think it was maybe based in some truth, but blown up in proportion by the novelist? Do you think Ed and Lorraine, dramatize things? Not sure.
It's interesting
Anyway,
for sure. It brings.
that's The Haunting in
I
Connecticut.
think this is one of those cases that we end up with more questions than answers,
Mhm.
and that's fine. Like sometimes.
Both of our cases today,
Yeah,
actually.
literally. Yeah, we just end up with more questions than answers, and I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
Because it's all
I mean,
about the
that's like
journey.
part of the fun, right?
Yeah, it's all about the journey. And I'm okay
Well,
with that.
This journey looks to be coming to an end.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We got our cases out. Hope you guys enjoyed them. You know the drill. Stay hydrated.
Sit up straight. I need to do that right now. Roll your shoulders back. Get some good posture in.
I was gonna say now you can walk them through the breathing exercises.
Smell the roses. Blow out the candle.
Yeah. And with that, we're off.
Have a good night, guys.
Before we go
Thank
off,
you so much
hey,
for being
Kai.
here. Yeah.
Smurf.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to Chambers of the Occult. For photos, sources, and anything else mentioned during the episode, check out our website at chambersoftheoccult.com. You'll find everything you need there if you do find yourself wanting more. You can also follow us on all of our socials at Chambers of the Occult and on Twitter at COTO Podcast. If you have any questions, comments, recommendations, personal anecdotes, or concerns, let us know. Fill out our contact form on our website, email us at chambersoftheoccult@gmail.com, or leave us a message on our socials. We would love to hear from you. And if you enjoyed what you heard, we would greatly appreciate it if you could drop a like, leave a comment, and subscribe. It is absolutely the best way to show your support, and it would mean the world. Until next time.